Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Labour Leadership Hustings 2020.
Thank you everyone very much and welcome to the South West Hustings this morning. My name is Doina Cornell and I'll be moderating the hustings today and keeping all the candidates in check. I just want to say welcome to all of you and particularly to our leadership candidates for coming to the South West. It's a really beautiful part of the world and it's got its own particular challenges. We may hear a little bit about that this morning. We do hear a lot about the north of the country, but obviously Labour needs to win here as well. I just want to say... I'll go through the running order and the way it'll work. Some of you will be familiar with that who've watched it live already on Facebook. But I just want to say before I start that I'm the leader of Stroud District Council. It's one of only 4 councils which is led by Labour in the South West. And it is worth remembering that Labour is still in government locally and our councils across the South West are pioneering councils. They're innovating in ways, for example, with housing and climate change, reaching carbon neutrality. So and I must also say that in Bristol and Plymouth, and particularly in Stroud, we will have local elections in May, which are really crucial. And I've already invited all of our candidates, whether they're successful or not, to come and campaign with us because we really need their support. So I've got a little script here just to run through so you're familiar with the proceedings. It's quite well organised. This event gives you all as members a chance to ask candidates questions on the issues that matter most to us as Labour voters, affiliate members and supporters. The aim of the guidelines that I will follow is to ensure that the events are fair to all the candidates and that they are treated equally. Earlier on in the green room, I went through all the questions you have submitted. It was a fantastic range of questions, and it was quite a challenge to sort of select some of them. But I hope we've agreed on a broad range of topics, also with a little bit of a flavour for where we are in the South West as well. Each of the candidates will have 40 seconds to answer the question, and a further 40 seconds. It's not a lot, but if you're a good politician, you can say a lot in 40 seconds. And a further 40 seconds to answer any follow-up questions that I might ask. They do have a timer down there, and I know sometimes they're a little bit naughty and try to go over, but I will try to make sure they do stick to it, because if we stick to the time, it means we get as many questions in as possible. I think that's only fair. Candidates can also respond to any points that other candidates have made, and I will make sure that all candidates have an equal amount of time to do so. I'll be putting your questions to the candidates on your behalf, and I just want to thank you for submitting so many. Before we came out on stage, the candidates drew lots to decide which one of them will stand at which podium. So the candidate behind podium number 1, which is Emily, will answer the first question first, and then going down the line, they will each answer the second question, in turn, and then we'll sort of keep it going, so each time a different person answers first, if that makes sense. I've got a little grid here to remind me of how we're going to do that. Sounds complicated, but it'll be fine. Each question will be asked to every candidate. We won't have any opening statements. We'll go straight into the first question, but candidates will be finishing up with the statement. I would also ask you to treat all the candidates with respect, and also that obviously the candidates also treat each other with respect. I think the hustings so far have been conducted in a really good way. And we do obviously want you to show your appreciation and support in the usual way, because I'm sure this matters a lot to us. But can we just ask that we don't have too much extended clapping, because the more clapping we have, the less we're going to be able to fit in. We really want to get a lot of questions in. So anyway, without further ado, let's get started. So I'm going to start with Emily. So I have a question here, a good one to get us going. So this is from Selin Cork from Bristol South, and it's a question about football. All right. I'm going to read this question, and for anyone who I know personally, don't be offended. This is not my question, this is someone else. So, given that we are in Aston Gate, home of the greatest football team in the world, Bristol City FC, not my question, I'm just reading it. I was just wondering what the candidate's favourite football chant is. Emily.
So, I represent Arsenal, that is my constituency, and I'll tell you that I am therefore an Arsenal supporter, but I don't don't care about football. I'm sorry, I really don't. And I know I'm supposed to, and I know populist politicians are supposed to, but you know what? I'm a girly. And I've got other things that I spend my time thinking about, and I'm sorry, guys. I know there are some women who support football teams as well, and I do support Arsenal. I will go to the games. I'm really pleased when we do well. But in the end, I'm interested in other things.
Thank you, Emily. Lisa?
Well, this is a very anti-rugby league question, and I don't think we should accept this level of division in the Labour Party. But my stepdad was a lifelong Bury FC fan, and his last words a couple of years ago, just before he died, to my stepbrother were, "What's the score?" And when Gig Lane closed down a few years ago, it was absolutely devastating. And there is so much to say about a football model in which that is allowed to happen and people lose something that important. But the same sentiment applies in Bury, which is now a key marginal seat, the most marginal in the country. So it's coming home is my choice. Labour's coming home.
Thank you all very much for coming. Lisa just leant across and said, did I stitch this question up? Because I'm a massive football fan, and one of my boyhood memories is 5 o'clock sports reports. Remember that? I just remember that forever. I'm an Arsenal fan and a season ticket holder, so I'm sorry about that. Extended clapping will not be happening just right now. And our chant, as everybody knows, is 1-0 to the Arsenal, which is about as unoriginal as you can possibly get. And I went to see the Arsenal-Barcelona game in Paris when we were in the European Champions final, and we were singing 1-0 to the Arsenal. They had these elaborate, fantastic songs, and so it put us in our place. What I would say, though, a little bit more seriously, grassroots football really, really matters. The money's much too much at the top, and it's the clubs at the bottom, further down, that need the resource, and we need to turn that around.
So I'm a United fan, and there is one great legendary footballer who in many hundreds of years from now will be known in the same way as Plato and Socrates. He is the king, he is King Eric, and my favourite football chant is "Uar Cantona."
Thank you very much. So I'll ask the question, then I'll be going to Lisa to start this one off. So this is a question from Chris in Stroud. Quite rightly, much has been said about Labour losing many seats in the Midlands and the North. However, to win Labour must win not many other seats also in the South and the South West. What would you do to persuade voters to vote Labour in these areas?
So my answer to that is that the scale of the challenge is awesome, but that it's ours for the taking. Over the last few years, I've spent time in almost every region and nation of this country, in city seats, in suburbs, in towns and in villages. There is no affection or enthusiasm for the Tories, but to win people's trust back, Labour's got to change. We've got to show people again that we're rooted in our communities, that we have as much riding on this as the people we represent, and most of all, we've got to work with pioneering councils like Stroud to help show the change and the difference that Labour makes, so that in 2024, when we're asking people to vote for us who were 2 or 3 years old last time there was a Labour government, we will be able to point to what is happening in their communities and say that is the difference Labour makes. Trust us to deliver real radical change.
Thank you very much for that question. We often forget that if you draw a line from London to Bristol and look south, there's over 120 seats, and we've got a handful of them. So we've got a huge job to do. We won't win if we don't win in the south, the southwest, and the southeast. And as I've gone around talking to people, campaigning in the south, the southwest, and the southeast, what I'm really aware of is that the towns and the villages and lots of the issues that are there in the south are not that dissimilar to the issues across other parts of the country. If you go around the Kent coast or further along around here, you get the same issues. We've got to listen to what people are saying to us. I think they want more power and control, they want investment in their areas, but we need to be here making the case, because we're not going to win without winning the south as well as the rest of England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland.
Well, look, there's no difference between someone who's struggling in Bristol compared to somebody who's struggling in Blythe. And we have to have a message that speaks to every single community in whatever income bracket you fall within. And unfortunately, in this election, although we had many of the greatest policies I think we've ever had, from our green industrial revolution all the way through to democratising our economy, we didn't have a message of aspiration that spoke to our communities, that proved that the Labour Party was the party of empowerment and improving people's lives. So that's the first thing we need to do. The second thing is about making sure that we create a mass movement, a year-round campaigning force, not just in general elections, but making sure that all of our members are rooted within their communities and they're visible. We've got to rebut the attacks. We've been too nice, I'll be honest. We have to rebut the smears and make sure that we fight tooth and nail against the smears that are coming against us from certain elements of the right-wing press. And finally, we need to know who the real enemy is, and we've got to unite as a party.
You're being quite... You're doing very well, but all of you are slightly going over, so if we try to sort of keep an eye on the clock down there, I know it's tricky, but...
I can't see the...
I know. Oh, can't you? OK, just... Sorry, we can move that
forward a bit.
Can you see it now? So, brilliant. Is that better?
Great, yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. OK, good. Emily.
Without a doubt, we have to win seats across the whole of our nations, because we cannot be a party that just represents a part of the country. And it's right. Struggle is struggle and poverty is poverty, and it doesn't matter where you come from. I come from Guildford. I launched my campaign in Guildford. People went, Guildford? No, actually, Belfield Council Estate. And there is poverty in London, there is poverty in the southeast, there's poverty in the southwest, there's poverty across the whole of our country. We have to be a party of the safety net, but we also have to be a party of opportunity. And that opportunity is making sure that not only that we invest in education, but that we give people a chance. We cannot continue to insist that people leave their parents and move to London in order to be able to get opportunities. We have to have a proper industrial strategy, an active industrial strategy that brings jobs to the whole of the country. We must rebalance our economy, and we cannot do that without a government that believes that you can actually make a difference in government. And we link that industrial strategy with our green industrial revolution. But people have to believe that we mean it and that we will do it.
Thank you for those answers. You're cheekily going over the time limit, I can see. I know it's probably really tempting, but I'm not picking on anyone in particular. You're all having a go, so. Right. Good politicians. Good question now. I'm going to start with, I think we're over to Kira's to begin this one. So what were you thinking at 11 o'clock last night? Oh, sorry, this is a question from Tom, who's from Bath CLP.
I was actually thinking about the state of our country, because it was, for me, a sad moment leaving the European Union. Sad because we're losing something which I believed in as a peace project above all else. But also I was reflecting on the fact that we've argued uphill and down dale for 3.5 years about the deal that we may or may not do, and we haven't done anything about the underlying reasons why people voted in the way that they did. Because I think it was years of political failure and economic failure that led so many people to say, we need change. And so it renewed my determination that we need to bring about fundamental change in this country and shift in power, in wealth and resources. So we need to look forward. Leave Remain as a divide is over, but the future now is about changing this country forever.
Well, it was very sad last night, but I think we need to acknowledge that in the last general election, many of our constituents didn't trust us on Brexit. If they were Leave voters, they thought we were trying to overturn the referendum result. If they were Remain voters, they thought we weren't being strong enough. And I think the debate is over. And what we need to do now is start building a vision of what Britain looks like after Brexit. And we need to be positive about that. We cannot spend the next 4 years waiting to tell our constituents, we told you so, and we knew it was going to be this bad all along. We've got to protect them. Hold the government to account and make sure that they get the best possible trade deal that protects workers' rights, protects consumer and health and safety standards and environmental protections, but ultimately build that economic vision for the future that will rebuild our communities and provide the hope that people need.
Emily.
At 11 o'clock last night, I was really down. I thought, as if the blow of losing the general election was bad enough, now we were leaving the European Union as well. And although there was much crowing last night, I was one of the ones who's really worried about what the hell is going to happen next. and what is going to happen next. We need to have a deal with the European Union, and we need to make sure that our biggest trading partner is kept close to us, and we also need to be close to them in terms of security and cultural reasons. I'm really concerned about the number of my constituents who don't even know they're going to be allowed to stay in the country. And we don't know whether by the end of the year we're going to have that deal. Frankly, I don't think we will, and I don't think that Boris Johnson cares. I think all he cares about was whether or not, what's he done in the last month? He's tried to make sure that Big Ben bongs at 11 o'clock. He's been providing a 50-pence coin. These are the sorts of things that are a priority for him. But we, who care about jobs and the economy and our country, need to be out there and fighting and making sure that he does what he's supposed to do, which is making sure we have a good deal with the European Union and that he looks after our country. We may well be back in no-deal territory, I'm afraid, by the summer, because they won't have done anything by that stage. And then what do we do? We need to have somebody leading the fight who was on the right side of the argument all along.
I feel like I need a red flag to wave when they start going over. Anyway, Lisa.
I was feeling defiant at 11 o'clock last night. I'm someone who campaigned for Remain, wanted to remain, and when we lost the referendum, went out and made the case for a close political and economic alliance with the EU and lost that too. And over the last 3 years, I think we've allowed the Tories to divide us, that say that we have to pick a side. That's what Tories do. They divide and rule. We should never have accepted the terms of that fight. We've looked backwards when we should have been looking forwards to the country we can be, and we completely missed the point of that political earthquake, which was a clamour for more power, more control and more agency across this country. So let's learn from where we've been and think about where we're going. The future lies in investing in the skills of people in this country and attracting talent from around the world so that we can build the high-wage, high-skilled economy outside of the EU, but with our future very, very clearly pointing towards Europe.
Thank you. Someone let off some very loud fireworks around the back of my house, so I played the Ode to Joy very loudly. So that made me feel better. Okay, so moving on. So what does Global Britain mean to you? I think that's a good follow-on question to what we've just heard, and we're starting with Becky now.
Well, it recognises that we are an internationalist party and we need to rebuild our own economic foundations, but we do that from an internationalist perspective. I want Britain to lead the world in a green industrial revolution and sell our technologies overseas and help to develop the economies of those countries overseas who are struggling, giving them a bright green future in the same way that we're going to give our own communities that bright green future of security, of well-paid jobs. And I also think that a globalised society recognises the role that Britain has to play in defence and foreign policy, about making sure that we are a force for peace, that we forge diplomatic relationships with countries across the world, and make sure that Britain says very much stability and peace across the world.
Emily.
Well, the Tories mean by Global Britain, they mean just trade, but we mean more than that. We mean making sure that we act unilaterally. We are a unilateralist country. We have always had our voices amplified by speaking with and by being friends with other countries that have similar views to us and similar values. And it seems to me that we have a role on the Security Council. We help to, frankly, most international law was written by British lawyers. The international institutions around the world were largely established by Britain. And it's because we are unilateralists that we need to continue to play that role. But our place on the Security Council is not to be a Donald Trump mini-me. We have to have our own voice, and we have to make sure that we have a leadership role when it comes to peace, when it comes to ensuring that countries come together. And yes, it's about international leadership when it comes to the Green Deal. We need to make sure that we are protecting our planet. We need to make sure we are pushing ourselves in the right way. And that in a world where there are more and more of these big men who think they can trample all over international law and all over international institutions, we need to bring other countries together, and we need to stand up to them and say no. The future of our world is too precious to allow you to play with it in this way. We have to stand up to them, and we will with a Labour government.
We're a better country than the Tories would have you believe. In my part of the world, in Lancashire, years ago, the Lancashire textile mill workers came out and stood shoulder to shoulder with the Indian cotton pickers, uniting the two sides of my family, from India to Lancashire, standing shoulder to shoulder to raise standards up together. That's why I say that as we move out of the European Union, but try and seek a close relationship with our European friends and allies, we have to use the leverage we have to recapture that spirit. We should not be signing trade deals with countries who haven't signed up to the Paris Agreement. We should use the leverage we have to raise up standards, not just for people here, but for working people across the world.
Look, this is a very important question because as of today, we stand on the international stage alone, again. And therefore, what we stand for absolutely matters. And I'm an internationalist. I've always believed in internationalism, and our parties always believed in internationalism. Solidarity across borders. And we need to make that case because there's a danger that we turn in on ourselves. People interpret what's happened as a country that now withdraws into itself and doesn't believe in international standards and obligations. So we need to make the case for peace and justice as our principles and values. And I want to be the Labour Prime Minister of this country that goes forward with those values, re-establishing that for Britain on the international stage and making the case for a human rights-based foreign policy, a human rights-based trade policy, so that we are actually forging our way forward. I also want to be the British Prime Minister that leads the way on climate change by much stronger agreements. The Paris Agreement is all very well, but it's just not strong enough. We could lead on the international stage. Let's step up to that and not withdraw from it.
Apologies, I think I forgot to say that question was from Jane from Bristol West. So moving on, sort of related question. So this is from Alex, also from Bristol West. We have chosen many other CLPs as well. This is a question on women and equality. So, and we'll be back to starting with Emily to take this first. With Trump's administration seeking to undermine laws which protect the rights of women, what will you do to ensure these rights are protected at home and abroad?
Yes, I mean, but Donald Trump, by his appointments to the Supreme Court, is trying to undermine Roe v. Wade, and we must not let that happen. We must not, if it happens in the United States, we have to make sure that we continue to be a beacon of women's rights. Our rights are hard won, and it seems to me that there must be no backsliding. In fact, what we should be doing is if the law is introduced so that it is not criminal to have an abortion in Northern Ireland, then they should come over to the rest of the United Kingdom as well. No backsliding, absolutely standing firm. And as for making sure that women's rights are appreciated across the world, I fear, though, as I say, with the growth of big men and with people like Donald Trump who really think that it's okay to sexually assault women and still be president of the United States, we need to have more women leaders on the international stage who say, you are a sexual predator, we say no to you, this is not the way to behave. The women of the world say no. We say no, we will not be humiliated like this. We are powerful and we fight back.
Lisa.
When I was first elected to Parliament, I used to say to young girls in my constituency, you must step forward, you must get involved, you must make your voices heard. I want to see you as the politicians of the future. 10 years later, I hesitate before I say that because I'm not sure that I want to subject them to what women like me and Becky and Emily have to put up with in politics. So I want to see Labour out there much bolder, flying the flag, speaking up, speaking out, men and women in this party, about the importance of women leadership at every level in our communities. When I say we push power down, that's because it's women across this country that are delivering real change. And if we want to create that world, we have to walk the walk, not just talk the talk. We need women in positions of responsibility in our party, not just at the front, but behind the scenes where policy is being made. I never want to see women shouted down in CLP meetings again. I've seen far too much of it in the last few years, and I want it to stop.
As the only man on this panel, let me make this clear and make it a pledge. I will be no less a champion of women's rights than any of the other candidates on this panel. That's what I've done all my life as a lawyer, as Director of Public Prosecutions, fight for women's rights, whether that's hate crime whether that's violence against women and girls, where we did a huge amount of time when I was at the Crown Prosecution Service trying to turn around the whole culture, or whether it's fighting alongside others against the sort of abuse that is much more directed against women than it ever is as men. All of us politicians get a huge amount of abuse, but I get less because I'm a man, and I'll stand up with everybody else against that all the time.
Look, I'm proud of our party's record in standing up for women's rights. And I think over the next 4 years, we're going to be faced with a government at home that's equally as bad as Donald Trump, quite frankly. And we're going to have to fight Boris Johnson every step of the way against the cuts he's made to rape crisis, against the cuts he's made to women's refuges. We're going to have to fight them every step of the way on basic human rights, such as the right to choose. And we're also going to have to fight for trans people within our party and within society and demand self-ID to be legislated for. But we've got to look beyond this and look at the bigger economic picture. The vast majority of cuts have fallen on the shoulders of women in society. And unless we see an economic revolution right across the country, we will never be able to address the disparity of pay and income between women and their male counterparts. And that cannot be done in a piecemeal fashion. That requires building our economy from the ground up through a green industrial revolution, scrapping universal credit, making sure that we have a welfare system that supports people and is fit for purpose, and tackling the gender pay quite vigorously.
Okay, thank you. And as a woman council leader, the only woman who's leading a council in the South West, it is important that we encourage women into politics. I have to say we've all been, as women, members of the party, really encouraged by what the outcome of the election is. Both the deputy and leader, we've had such a strong mix of both men and women standing, which is really good to see. I think never before in the party we've had such a good representation by women. So that's a great measure of the talent we've got, isn't it, in our party? But, of course, so the men don't feel out. I've chosen a question to address, a question which I think is extremely important. So this comes from Alison in North Somerset, and I'm going to be starting, I think it's Lisa now. So what measures would you put in place to raise the aspirations, horizons and educational attainment of the white working class, in particular those of boys and young men who occupy the lowest rung in the ladder of national educational achievement?
So before I came into Parliament, I worked with children and young people, first at the charity Centrepoint and then at the Children's Society with refugee and migrant children. And the young people from working class backgrounds are every bit as aspirational as their more affluent peers until they reach the age of 14. When somehow the system that we have and the society that we have beats that aspiration out of those young people and tells them that there's no use having dreams because they don't have a plan. So the first thing I would do was to restate the education maintenance allowance and a programme called Aim Higher, which lifted the number of young people from my constituency that went on to university by 40% in just 6 years. One of the greatest legacies of the last Labour government, one of the first things the Tories took the axe to. We should never, ever let them forget it. We bring it back and we make those dreams into reality.
Putting our money in our primary schools and our 0 to 5s. Sure Start was fantastic. My wife was a learning mentor. She was working in primary schools with white working class boys who were struggling, not because they had learning difficulties, but because of the circumstance in which they were living at home. It was a fantastic Labour project, was making a real difference, and it's all been cut. And it is a disgrace. So we have to put our money in to our young people 0 to 5, and then at primary school in particular, because if we don't catch it there, it is so much more difficult to deal with it at secondary school and beyond secondary school. That was one of the fantastic things we did that wasn't embedded and has been stripped away by the Tories, and is absolutely disgraceful.
Funnily enough, I was talking to the train conductor on the way down about this, and this is the very point that he made. But what I'd like to say today is that aspiration is socialism. And it's not about social mobility for a select few who are lucky enough to climb a ladder and succeed. This is about every single one of us in every single community being able to reach our potential. And we don't have that system at the moment. So we need a cradle-to-grave education service. We need to make sure that apprenticeships are worthy of the name and start bringing up our young people and training them in the skills of the future. And alongside that, we've got to have an industrial strategy that actually creates the jobs of the future. The Green Industrial Revolution will do that, and the industrial strategy that I've been working on over the last 4 years will work towards doing that. But we've also got to make sure that we have security in those jobs. And that means making sure that we roll out sectoral collective bargaining. We ensure that trade unions have access to every single workplace, that we ban zero-hour contracts.
Becky, do you want to wrap up now? Sorry, yeah. Thank you.
Because for me, the role of government is
Becky,
the betterment of its people.
Oh, I think you've...
That's
sorry,
it.
sorry, Becky. I know it's difficult for you. You've been all doing really well, but I'm trying to keep... I'm getting evil eyes from the other candidates when we go very, very far off the time allowed. We've still got quite a lot of questions to get through to. So I think we're back to Emily now.
I think that it is about, you can't expect people to have aspiration if they don't have the opportunities and there aren't the things for them to then be able to aspire to do. And I think that where we have a country that is stripping out jobs for people where they cannot see what is the point of doing well at school? What's the point of going into an apprenticeship if it's not really teaching you very much? It's very difficult in those circumstances to simply say we need to have aspiration. What we need to have is opportunity. And we can only have those opportunities if we change the way our economy works, as I've already said. We need to have proper jobs for people up and down the country. And then, of course, what we need to be doing is making sure that our education system is worthy of its name. And there are things, particularly at Sure Start, particularly at 16, where people do need to have additional money in the educational maintenance allowance. And we need to have more male teachers so that boys can identify with them more closely. And we need to make sure that when kids are 12, 13, they want to find another role model and there isn't necessarily a male teacher, that we have a youth service. And the youth service is there as an alternative series of role models for young boys to be able to aspire to and to be able to see there are other ways. That is how it works, and we are ignoring this at our peril.
Thank you. I know I'm being a bit bossy, but you're actually doing exceptionally well because you're being asked some very complex questions and answering them really succinctly. So I'm going to move on to housing now. Certainly in Stroud and in Bristol, we've been building some of the first council houses in generations, so we're very proud of our record on that, but it is a crucial issue which perhaps didn't really come up very much during the general election. This is a question from Tony in Chippenham, and his question is, some estimates suggest that the shortfall in housing may be as much as 3 million households, and that the current level of house building is not even meeting immediate demand. What should party policy be to address this housing shortfall and to tackle the inequities that exist in the current housing market? And I think it's Keir to start this one.
More houses at affordable rates. It's basic, it should have happened, and it hasn't happened. And it's across the whole country. And this affects everything. Poor housing that people can't afford is distressing because you're living in poor circumstances. In my constituency, we've got huge amounts of overcrowding because we haven't got enough council housing and social housing. And then it's not just the temporary period that you're living in overcrowding or poor conditions, it affects the children. And so I get parents coming to me in my surgery with a note from school saying their children are failing at school because they can't learn at home. Before you know it, those kids are then on the street, because if you've got too many children in an overcrowded house, they'll go onto the street, and that leads to all sorts of other problems. This is not just a housing issue, it's a massive issue. We need more housing, we need council housing and social housing at rents and rates that people can actually afford. And I don't mean the definition of affordable housing, I mean they can actually afford. It is disgraceful we're in this place. We absolutely need to make a commitment of it. Don't see it as a housing issue, see it as a much bigger social justice issue, because that's what it is.
Housing is a basic human right, and we are not providing our people with that human right at the moment. We need to see a dramatic council house building programme, as like the one that we set out in the last manifesto. We need to ban the right to buy unless those houses are replaced on a like-for-like basis. You need significant controls on private tenancies to provide fair rent and security so that families and individuals can put down roots within communities. But we also need to look at the quality of housing. Many years ago, the Labour Party was proud to roll out a set of quality standards for homes, and that seems to have been rolled back over the last 40 years. We need to be the generation that brings back that demand for quality, whether it's insulating your home or making sure that it's in a space or a lighting place or an area that's fit for purpose. That's the quality of life that our people deserve, and we're the party to lead on that.
Emily.
The answer to the housing crisis is to build more homes. We need to build more homes. That is the only way in which we can address the housing crisis, and we need to do it by way of carrot and stick. So we need to have government money going into building more affordable housing and social housing and council housing, but we also need a stick, and we haven't got a big enough stick at the moment, and we need to pass some laws to make sure that we do. And what we need to be doing is this. We need to be saying to those who are land banking, you use it or you'll lose it. We will make sure that areas are zoned for housing. You've got 5 years to build. If you don't build within those 5 years, the council's taking it over. And as for all these empty flats, for these people who think in China, oh, let's either buy a gold bar or buy a flat in Bristol. No, you're not allowed to buy a flat in Bristol as an investment and keep it empty. If you keep it empty, you lose it. You lose it. This is a matter of intergenerational justice. It is not fair that younger people are never considered for social housing because they're too young and they're not seen as priority need, and it's not fair that they can't afford to buy. So what do? They go into the private rented sector, and quite frankly, we know we have Dickensian standards in the private rented sector. We need to bring in more controls, and we need to bring in rent controls. Enough, we say, enough. There needs to be a bigger stick, and that's how you deal with a housing crisis. You have to take it seriously. It has to be a priority. It is a question of leaving an entire generation behind who are not able to find anything other than precarious housing. It is a shock and a shame, and we must do something about it.
I can't follow that. The housing crisis that we have two. And it's a consequence of an economic model that is broken. There's the housing crisis in towns like mine and many of the towns that we lost at the last election, where you've got boarded up homes. The housing that we are building is completely unaffordable, £450,000 houses in places where people have average household incomes of £25,000 a year. And it's a consequence of jobs having departed those areas and the young people with them. But the flip side is what's happening here in Bristol, because where are those young people going? They're moving to the cities. So we're overheating one part of our economy and we're completely underusing and underappreciating another. And that's why you have the high house prices and the inability of young people to get on the housing ladder. That's why you have these rogue landlords able to get away with devastating treatment and terrible standards in the private rented sector. If we want to sort this out, we need to look to councils like Liverpool, where they've brought in a Liverpool housing register, which the Tories have banned. And we've got to say, this is the difference between Labour and the Tories. We are actually out there doing this, and they are trying to stop us. Elect a Labour government, and this could change.
Thank you. I think, Becky, you're due to start this one. So this question is from Teresa from Bristol West, and it's about social care. So I'm a hospital doctor working with older people. One of the challenges facing the NHS is delayed discharges due to lack of social care in the community. How are you going to address the question of funding for social care and long-term placement?
We have been proud to create a social model in Britain that says to our people that if you work hard and if you contribute, you'll be looked after when you're older. You'll be looked after when you fall on hard times. And unfortunately, that contract has been broken by the current government. And it's happened over a number of years. And it's happened because they want to privatise the NHS. There's no two ways about it. They've been running it into the ground. And in terms of social care, they don't want us to have a publicly owned or ran social care system. They want those who can afford to pay for their own social care. Now, it's not an easy question to answer, but we need dramatically more investment in social care. We need to look at the creation of a national care service. We need to recommit to the pledges that we set out in our manifesto about free personal care and ensuring that people can stay in their own homes for as long as they possibly can. But it's also about rebranding the whole social security framework and reiterating that contract to people within our community so that they understand what it's for, because for too long we've let the Tories away with the argument of scroungers, and those who can afford it should go private and do what it is they want to because they deserve to do that. That's not what we believe in. We need to rebrand social security and social care.
Emily.
In this country, there are elderly women who are put to bed at 5 o'clock in the evening and told they have to stay there because there's no one there to look after them. There are people with disabilities who don't get washed every day. There are people who have to make a choice between being washed that day and having a meal cooked for them. This is not the British way. This is not the way that we are. This is not our country. We have slid too far to the right and it needs to be sorted out. And just as our country really believes in our National Health Service, if people knew just how bad it was, I think half the country knows and are absolutely convinced we have to do something about social care, and the other half have yet to find out. Let's not make that happen. Let's actually sort this out. You know, it is a question of a safety net. It is a question of who we are as a country. We look after the elderly. We look after the marginalised. We look after the weak. That is who we are. Because it could happen to us at any time. It could happen to anyone in our family. And the British way is that we look after one another and we put our arms around each other. We put our arms around each other, and our national religion is the National Health Service. And frankly, its little sister, its little poor sister is social care. We pay for it, frankly, and I think we pay for it out of national taxation. Let's not mess around. Let's just make sure that we extend our National Health Service, because in the end, it undermines the National Health Service. People go into the NHS in crisis because there's been no one there to look after them, and then they can't get out again afterwards because there's no one to look after them. It makes no sense. And if you have dementia, as my father did, there is no way in which you actually get that care paid for, because somehow or other, it's not a physical disability. Hello? You know, and so we have to. So if you're over a certain income, it has to be paid for. Basically, if you get dementia, it's 100% tax. That's not fair. We should all be looking after one another. And frankly, it's a women's issue, because in the end, it is women who hold up the sky. We're the ones who have the responsibility at the end of the day, and we're the ones who are living longer and are likely to need our social care. And if we don't want our daughters,
Thanks, Emma.
and they will be, looking after us in our old age, we have to sort this out.
Okay, Lisa.
We have to be honest that if we want proper social care for our families and for my family and for yours, then we have to pay for it. And tax is not a bad thing. Tax is the contribution that we make to a more civilised, more caring, decent society. And when we allowed the bedroom tax, one of the most callous policies that I've ever seen to be framed, the bedroom tax, I'm afraid that we won the battle, but we lost the war. We have to go out and make the case for a tax system that is sustainable. And that means it has to be fairer and it has to be more feasible. We can't keep taxing earned wealth and income. We have to start taxing unearned wealth and have the courage to go out there and make that case and win that argument. So that in the wealthiest country in the world, or one of them at least, our older people don't have to fear growing old without dignity and warmth. You know, Bobby Kennedy once said, some people look at the world as it is and say, why? I see the world as it should be and say, why not? That's the spirit we need to recapture for the next Labour government in 2024 that will sort this settlement out for good.
Here.
Look, social care's in a complete mess. Anybody who works in it or experiences it knows it needs a complete overhaul from top to bottom. The provision isn't there, the funding isn't there, the staff are treated very, very poorly. Poor conditions, poor pay, and always attacking those conditions. So if you're staff in this area, it's likely that you're not now paid to go between trips to dispense the care that you need to dispense. So it needs a top to bottom overhaul, and we need to recognise the skills that the staff in the sector actually have and have a proper framework for them. Of course it needs to be joined up with the NHS. I agree with many of the points that others have made on this panel, and it's good that we're all making similar points for the future of our party. But I'll tell you this, not being able to deal with this for 5 years is the price for failure. Because it's all very well saying this now, this morning, in this hall, but we're not going to be able to do this for 4 or 5 years. And think of the many thousands and thousands of people going to have to put up with poor social care. That's the price of losing elections. We need to understand that.
this is very much a question that's pertinent to local government, and we've got the local government hustings next week, so I think these questions will go into more detail on that. So I think but it's important because although we're not going to be nationally in power for some years, local government is really doing its best around prevention and keeping people in their homes. So I think we'll have a chance to explore that in more detail next week. So I've got a couple of questions here around climate change, an issue that is significant nationally, but particularly in the southwest. This one is, and we're going to be starting, I think it's back to Emily first. This is from Malcolm in Bridgewater. And this question is to say what we are in the rural southwest. Well, we're actually in Bristol now, aren't we? But obviously we'll take that on the broadest possible sense. What specific actions could the candidates take to deliver sustainable agriculture to address climate change and the decline of biodiversity?
So we're leaving the European Union, and there is a challenge now for our countryside as to where we go next and what it is that we do. And the difficulty is going to be that although many farmers feel that this is a new opportunity, that there are new horizons, there are concerns about how we will be able to sustain our agriculture without the agricultural fund that has been sustaining particularly smaller businesses. And the question is going to be, where does our agriculture go next, and how do we reflect needs? What we need to do, surely, as number one, is to do something about the supermarkets who so absolutely screw the lid down on our farmers and who demand things that are unachievable for them. You know, the way in which we are able to buy milk at, frankly, the same price as it costs practically the farmer to produce it is wrong. And we need to make sure that our farming communities are properly supported so that the supermarkets do not continue to take the mickey. Because when you have such large supermarkets that are such monopolies, the farmers are completely caught by the short and curlies in relation to it. We need to make sure that we have a more sustainable model and that farmers are able to bring their stuff to market without being so dependent on the big supermarkets that take the mickey in the way that they do. That needs to be changed. And frankly, if the supermarkets won't do it themselves, then I think that since we're leaving the European Union and we're going to be changing the way we're doing our farming, and that's one of the challenges, and we should be up for doing it, and we should be up for taking the supermarkets on.
When I was the Shadow Energy and Climate Change Secretary, we worked with Labour councils across this country in order to deliver real change. They were investing in clean energy schemes, they were investing in peat restoration schemes, they were planting trees across this country, and between us we made a pledge, a real pledge, to cut the UK's carbon footprint, even at a time when the Tory government was axing solar energy and blocking new wind. We may not be in power, but we should never believe that we're powerless. And to really tackle this climate emergency, we need to build the broadest coalition that stretches not just right across the Labour Party, but includes people like Caroline Lucas. In the fight against climate change, Caroline Lucas is not our enemy. We've got to end the tribalism and tackle climate change now.
We need a sustainable agricultural policy. Powers now, as of today, are coming back to the United Kingdom that were exercised in the EU, and we need to decide where those powers are going to be exercised. And I think they need to be done as locally as possible, and regions in the southwest should have a say over what our agricultural policy is as we go forward. We could do some simple things. We should eat less meat. I'm a vegetarian. I don't want to enforce that on everybody, although we do enforce it on our kids. But we do need to move away from a meat-based economy, and that has to be part of our agricultural policy. But on the wider question of climate change, we have to support the Green New Deal, and we have to stop the argument that says something is good for the economy, but bad for the environment. If it's bad for the environment, it's bad for the economy, and that has to be hardwired.
Time is running out. And we didn't win the general election. We'd have been well on with our green industrial revolution by now if we had. But time is not on our hands, and we have got to do what we can to try and push the government to take the radical action that's required to reach net zero. Now, leading international scientists are saying that we have to have the majority of the work done to reach net zero by 2030. So that's not a lot of time. And the farming community plays a huge, huge role in this. Being very, very specific, I think we need to have a huge rewilding programme. It's necessary for our bee population specifically, because we wouldn't have any agriculture if we didn't have bees. Google it. I didn't know about this till I became an MP and there was a huge bee campaign. But they're integral to our ecosystem as we know it. We need to dramatically reforest the whole of the United Kingdom and go way beyond the plans that the government has set out. And we also need to empower our farming community to adopt the technologies of the future. The technologies are being developed now, world-leading technologies, I have to say, here in the UK that will allow our farmers to farm in a more sustainable way, whether it's moth radars that allow them to know when the moths are going to come over and infest their crops so they don't have to spray pesticides all year round on particular crops. That technology is adoptable, but our farming community is often not able to take part of that because they can't afford it, because they are, as Emily said, quite in hock to many of our leading supermarket chains and the supply chains that they're part of. The government needs to play a direct role in supporting them financially.
Thank you. I'm going to be coming back to Lisa now. I'm going to ask you a supplementary question to that. So our council, Stroud District Council, was the first council to become carbon neutral in Europe. And we... Thank you. As a Labour group, we recently announced we're going to attempt to run a carbon negative election campaign, which means we'll monitor our carbon emissions and we'll seek to take out of the atmosphere more carbon, like, for example, locking it through planting trees and actually emissions. So I wonder if, as candidates, you might be looking at our own emissions as a party and whether we could maybe become the first carbon negative party, political party. That would be quite exciting if we could do that. I'm going to start with Lisa.
So I've always been really ambitious on tackling climate change, and 5 years ago as the Shadow Energy Secretary I called for a green industrial revolution. But if we want to tackle climate change, we have to have not just dreams but a plan, and we have to be honest about where we are. There are councils around this country, not just Stroud but Lambeth as well, that are leading the way in going carbon neutral by 2030. But we're not going to be in government till 2024, and at the moment this government isn't even on track to meet the target by 2050. Now, every single one of us on this panel accepted at a hustings last week that we would need to rely on gas for decades and decades to come. And if you do, then what is the realistic plan that we're going to use to take this forwards? That is going to take the energy of everyone in our movement. And that's why I say, don't challenge me and the other candidates to go further and faster and sign up to pledges. We're all committed to tackling climate change. Before we had the Green New Deal, we had Barry Gardiner championing this case. Before we had that, we had me. Before we had that, we had Ed Miliband. He was given permission to do it by Gordon Brown, and before him, inspired by the work of John Prescott. This is a movement that has always sought to advance the status quo. Rather than arguing amongst ourselves about who's more ambitious on climate change, we ought to be reclaiming that legacy and going out together to the world to tell that story. If we don't, if we divide ourselves from one another, that is how the Tories win over and over and over again, and that is how we let people down. We can do better.
Can I just support Lisa on that? Because I think everybody on this panel, there are some issues like this, where everybody in this panel genuinely and sincerely wants to do the right thing for our party, our movement and our country, and that includes on environmental damage and climate change. And we need to pull that together so that we're all working together rather than to divide people on this issue. So I support Lisa on that. Can I say, well done and fantastic that the councils are doing the work they are. Whilst we're out of power, our local authorities are the last line of defence for many of the communities that we want to represent, but they're also doing innovative stuff as well. And on climate change and carbon emissions, they're leading the way. And we need to hold up our local authorities and celebrate what they're doing and showcase them and say, this is what Labour in power can do, and pull it together, share best practice. And I think that there's too much distance sometimes between the leader of the Labour Party and our local authorities. And I would like to close that distance and work much more closely with you. And I finally say for our local authorities, thank you for everything you're doing. You don't get the recognition that you deserve. Thank you.
I think it's important for us as a party to lead in terms of emission reduction. And the fact is that we need to reach the vast majority of our emissions reductions by 2030. And we're not in government And if we don't press the government to take more radical action, when we are in government in 2024, the impact on our communities and the industries that we support will be even more detrimental than it is now. We talk about just transition. We've got to fight for a just transition and develop the plans that will implement the change needed as quickly as possible. And I'm proud to support the conference motions that went through at Labour Party conference this year calling for that action. I think every single shadow cabinet department needs to have a plan that looks in detail at how they completely decarbonise every single sector within their department. That is a huge task, but we don't have the time. We're trying to give a world to our children and grandchildren. We can't mess about with this. It's that serious. But it's also the biggest economic lever we have ever had to transform our economy. So if we get this right, we won't just save the world, but we'll reindustrialise our communities and provide hope for many generations to come.
I was part of the delegation that went to Copenhagen when we were in government with Ed Miliband, and I was proud of the leadership role that we took at that time. And I'm afraid we have fallen so far back. But one of the things we have to do as a Labour government, we need to be listening to local communities. And frankly, you know, 8 miles down the A4, we have the Severn, which is the second largest source of tidal power in the world. And what is being done with it? Squat. Nothing. Now, experts tell us that tidal lagoons may overcome some of the difficulties and the problems with the original barrage idea, but frankly, are the Tories rising to the challenge? Are they listening to Bristol? Are they paying any attention? Absolutely not. We hoped that with the Swansea tidal lagoon projects that it may well be able to lead the way in terms of energy production here. I mean, 5 to 10% of the energy that we need in this country, if we used it smartly and made sure that we looked after the environment, could actually be used. If we don't actually do these things, then all this talk of zero emissions is just breathing out more carbon. We have to be different. We have to be a party of a green industrial revolution that means it, and we have to lead the way, and we need to be listening to local communities, and we must be brave and radical and believable and credible.
Got just under 15 minutes left. Brilliant. And some of it's great. Sometimes you go actually on 40 seconds. It's fantastic. Really skilled there. You've all managed to do that at one time or another. So I think we've had a few questions here a bit more about the party itself. So I'm going to take this question. I think we're starting with Keir now, which is from Tim in South Swindon. And the question is, how will you make the party more democratic and empower members? And he's written how, emphasis on how.
Firstly, we celebrate the fact that we're a party now of 580,000 members. That is fantastic. Really, really fantastic. We're the largest political party in Europe. We need to be as transparent and democratic as possible. And the first thing we need to do is make sure the culture in all of our meetings is such that everybody feels that they can be part of our party and part of our movement, that their voice is heard, and that all members have that collective voice. So there's a cultural thing before we even get to the rules here. Let's make sure we respect each other and unite our party. Beyond that, I think we need the greatest democracy in our party. I think we should ensure that all decisions have huge input from our members, whether that's policy or selection of candidates. We need to select a lot more candidates to win the next general election. We need to get on with that process as quickly as possible so that it's open and transparent and our members can take the decisions and there's no imposition from the NEC except in completely extraordinary circumstances. But the most important thing is that each and every member feels I can go along, I can be heard, I will be respected, I'll be proud to be part of the collective decision making.
I think our communities won't trust us to democratise politics and democratise our economy if we can't even democratise our own party and make sure that our members have the role and the respect that they deserve within our party. And that's got numerous facets to it. Firstly, members should be an active part of the policy-making process right from their CLP meetings, not just at conference. Secondly, members should have the right to open selections so that they can hold their members of parliament to account as they hold their councillors to account. We want to make sure that the talent we have within our party rises up, as well as our great MPs, and we have many great MPs, some of them are here today, are respected and rewarded by their local members. But being an MP is not a job for life, and that's why we need to trust our members to make decisions on this. We need to have properly resourced political and economic education within our party, so our members are empowered to have those policy discussions with that robust background behind them. And we need a new BAME organisation to allow BAME members to self-organise, as was agreed at Labour Party conference. They're the basics of a professional and accountable organisation, and they're certainly the things that I'll be pushing for as leader.
In 2015, when Jeremy Corbyn was elected as leader of the Labour Party, people were full of hope. And they thought that there would be a greater democracy of the Labour Party, and I'm afraid we have not seen it. And when that rebellion happened in Westminster and MPs turned against Jeremy, I did not. Because I fundamentally believe that Jeremy Corbyn was the leader of the Labour Party because he was the member's choice, and it was my duty to stand by him and to make him the best leader that he could be. And that's what I have done, and that's what I will always do. But I'll tell you what, let's go back to a few basics, because we're talking about democracy here. Why is it that all our parliamentary candidates are not being freely selected by local parties at the moment? You know, why is it that all of those who are Tory seats or seats held by other parties, all of them had their parliamentary candidates imposed on them? Why did that happen? That's wrong. You know, local parties should be selecting their own candidates, and from across the country, people have had candidates forced on them at the last minute. So I think that once someone becomes a member of parliament, so in marginal seats that you were able to select, in Labour seats you were able to select, but if you were in a Tory seat or a Nat seat or anything else, then everyone got their candidates, because you were third tier, got your candidates imposed on you. And that's wrong, because you needed to have a focal point for community campaigning, and that wasn't happening. That does seem to me to be pretty anti-democratic. And the other point I would say is this: of course MPs must remain close to their local parties, and they must listen to them, and they must campaign with them, because if they don't, then they will be deselected. Because of course, being an MP is not a job for life. We do our campaigning as a team, and as an MP in my local area, I am a local leader, but I listen to my members and I listen to my community. And if you don't, that's the end of you.
If we want to meet the clamour for more power and agency across this country, then we've got to walk the walk, not just talk the talk. It's no use us telling people in Scotland who are attracted by the independence movement that we're going to empower them in government if we treat Scottish Labour as a branch office of UK Labour. I'd like to see the leaders of Scottish Labour and Welsh Labour in my shadow cabinet, but I'd also like to see councillors, assembly members, MSPs and defeated candidates forming part of our front bench teams so that we get the right policy. We should give our members the right to make policies at regional conference as well, so we're driven by the ground up. And let me just disagree with something that's just been said on this panel, because the MPs that I want to get rid of are Tories, not Labour. Give our members the real power we want to get the right candidates. No more parachutes, no more stitch-ups, no more imposing people who are friends of the leadership onto local areas. Let's democratise the process properly.
Right, we're coming to the end of the times, which is a real shame. There's still a lot of great questions to ask. If you could perhaps keep your next answer quick, then I might be able to fit an extra one, but we'll see how we go. So we're back to Becky is starting this one off. And this question is from Emily in Filton and Bradley Stoke. And the question is, what is one thing you have done as a constituency MP that you are most proud of?
Well, one of the things yesterday, I was in my Salford constituency office and one of my constituents came to see me because a lot of the time you see heartache and hardship, and when you're not in power, it becomes quite demoralising as a Labour MP, I have to be honest. But yesterday, a constituent that I helped came in with a bottle of wine to say thanks. And what had happened to his husband had suffered a terrible accident and he suffered brain injury. And he went through, over the last few years, various care plans and eventually ended up in a care home where those in the care home said, there's no hope for him, he's not going to get better, we're just going to have to manage his situation. But the husband never gave up. He kept filming his husband on different drugs and different care plans and came into the office and showed me and said, Becky, look, he's in there, my Daniel's in there, he just needs the right care. So I promised him that we'd get some consultants in, we'd speak to the clinical commissioning group and we'd get another review done. And the review happened over Christmas and the review said that the outcome was good. And if he had a different care plan and he was moved into a different setting, within 2 years, he'd be back home and potentially able to get a job and be back in employment. And from where he was as a practical vegetable to having that hope for the future, that made me realise how important my job was to fight for people who didn't have a voice.
There was a Somali woman who came to see me, and she had run away, and she had brought her younger children with her, and she'd left her older children with her husband under a tree. And there was Al-Shabaab was in the area, and her husband disappeared, and we presumed that he'd been killed, and we were trying to get the older children over. And we couldn't because she didn't have refugee status. She had exceptional leave to remain. So we tried to get the children over. The British government said no, so she applied for British citizenship. She got it, she applied. The British government said no. They said you need to have a certain income in order to bring your children over. So she got herself 2 jobs, and she tried to bring the children over. And then they said, aha, the children are too old. And I had been in touch with the Home Office, and I had said to them, these children are at risk. Al-Shabaab is in this area. And guess what? The eldest child was murdered by Al-Shabaab. And then we applied to get the other children over, and the British government continued to say no. And I put out an appeal to Islington, and I said, this is the family. These are Islington people. They deserve to be with us. We need to make sure that we welcome them. And I put out an appeal, and people stopped me in the street, and they gave me £5 notes and £10 notes. And we raised the money so that she was able to appeal, and we won. And the reason we won was because the judge was told that Islington wants this family, and this family deserves justice. I was never prouder of being a Member of Parliament than helping that family.
A few years ago, a group of young people from Wigan and Lee College came to see me to tell me that at one stroke of a pen, the coalition government had erased their chance to carry on at college. The EMA meant everything to young people in my constituency, kids from large families with low incomes who couldn't go on to university because they couldn't get through college. They said to me, what are you going to do about it? I said to them, what are we going to do about it? So they designed a petition and we took it everywhere. We got thousands of signatures. I worked with some brilliant other Labour MPs to do the same in their constituencies. We put buses on, we got them down to Westminster. They marched in the streets, many of them for the children who came after them, not for them, because they knew how much it mattered. It was one of the proudest days of my life seeing them in Central Lobby chasing Tory and Lib Dem MPs into cupboards because they were too scared to front up to 16-year-olds who don't even have the right to vote. That is, and at the end of that process, we didn't win it for everybody, but we did win the right of those young people who'd already started to carry on at college and go on to university. Thousands of kids in my constituency, kids across this country. Why does it matter? Because it shows the sort of leadership that we need as a Labour Party going forwards. A leadership that comes from a clamour of noise outside, that hears it, that acts on it, and that opens the door to change. It takes a movement.
Let me tell you, but I'm reluctant because I don't want to make a big thing of this. Seriously. We've got a terrible knife crime problem in my constituency at the moment, with young boys, mainly, being stabbed. We were in the middle of some of the massive Brexit fights in Parliament, and I was on the front bench fighting in some of those dramatic votes. And Georgia Gould, who is the leader of Camden Council, phoned me and said there's been another murder, a Somali boy. And she said, I'm going to see the mum. And I knew it was my moral duty to go with her. So I left Parliament and I went up to see mum with Georgia. No press, no statements, just to go and stand with a mum who had just lost her boy. One of the hardest things I've ever done. I was there to hug her, to be with her, to offer her support, though she couldn't take it in. And Georgia and I have done that every single time, too many times. And then I went back to Parliament and didn't make anything of it. That's my proudest moment.
Thank you for those stories. I think that was all really moving, and it reminds us that you're all constituency MPs really making a difference to people's lives, as well as all the things that you'll be doing potentially as our leader of our party, and you'll remain constituency MPs. I think was really moving to hear those stories. So We need to finish really bang on 1 o'clock. So I think all the candidates have been invited to make a 2-minute statement, and we're going in the order they drew the lot, so it's going to begin with Emily. So I think we'll just, once you finish, we'll move on to the next and the next without me having to say. I think you've done that pretty well so far, so over to you, Emily.
It's great to be back in Bristol. Again, you know, where I come here many times, whether it was chairing Marvin's mayoral campaign or helping with local and regional and national elections, it does feel like a second home coming to Bristol. And for me, this campaign is not really about who's going to take us to the left or to the right, but who is going to take us forward. Now, I put myself forward for this because I believe that I'm the best person to take this fight forward and to take this fight to Boris Johnson. How are we going to beat him? We must never let this happen again. I put myself forward as somebody who has taken on Boris Johnson for 2 years when he was Foreign Secretary, and I fought him toe-to-toe across the dispatch box and exposed him to be the lying, manipulative fraudster that he is. And I want to have the opportunity of doing that again to show that he is just as bad and will be the worst Prime Minister that we have had. It's going to be a long, tough fight. So that is the other reason that I stand, because I am battle-hardened, because I am experienced, because I am strong, and I am a resilient campaigner, and I need to be able to lead this fight. Ever since I was 17, I have been involved, I have been a party activist. And throughout my life, I have represented miners on strike in the 1980s. I've marched against the Iraq War. I've stood up in Parliament for the rights of Palestinians. And every campaign that we have fought together, I have been at the front line of that campaign, and I want to continue to do it. And when this leadership is over, and people have said, this leadership campaign is over, people have said, well, maybe the cameras will turn away. I can assure you the cameras do not turn away when I speak. And I can continue to be a voice for this party, and I will be your campaigner-in-chief. And whether you have community campaigns or local elections, I will be with you. You need to have someone to inspire you. We have 5 hard years in front of us. Let us do it together, and I can lead you. Give me an opportunity. Nominate me.
As we leave the EU, I want to talk to you about the city we stand in and the country that I seek to lead. A city that was built on the backs of slavery, now led by Europe's first directly elected black mayor, who's showing compassion to refugees and action on climate change. This is the Britain we can be. A country that understands its past but knows where it's going, that knows that the path of least resistance never ever points towards progress, and that it takes a movement, like the Bristolians who stood up against the bus company who refused to employ black and Asian drivers. They changed our destiny and they changed mine. My dad came to this country in the 50s from India, and he fought those battles all his life. It led him to help with the creation of the Race Relations Act, one of the greatest gifts that Labour has ever given to this country. Compare that to the Tories. They say we're a small island nation that punches above its weight, never stopping to ask why it is that we're punching at all. The self-confident, empowered country I will lead, but will be one that is different, where people like Benjamin Zephaniah can accept the order of British excellence, not reject the order of British empire, that celebrates those who have built us, not seeks to alienate them, to remake this country as it should and can be, written, as he says, in verses of fire. Now, to do this, we have to find the courage, and there are moments in history when we have, but it starts with us. 6 weeks ago, I set myself on that path. If you want a better world, you have to go out and fight for it. If you want a different sort of leadership, you have to go out and vote for it. I'm asking you today to join me so that we can create this world as it is, and we can tell our children that we carried forward the torch of progress. We will win. And when we win, they will know that we did it together.
We're here because we lost the general election. And that was devastating. Devastating for our party and for our movement and for the millions of people that desperately needed change after 10 years of Tory rule, who are now not going to get that change. And we didn't just lose one election, we've lost 4. 4 in a row. The next one is probably 2024. And if we lose that, Labour will have been out of power for a longer period than any time since the Second World War. A whole generation will have been let down. I came into politics to change lives, to better millions of people's lives. And that's why you're all in politics. That's why you're here. And we don't achieve that by losing elections. So we've got a choice as a party in this, and it's your choice. We can either mope around for the next 4 years, head in hand, arguing about why we lost, blaming each other. And we can do that. We do that well. And if we do that, we'll lose. Or we can unite and rebuild. That doesn't mean ditching the radicalism of the last 5 years. It means building on it so that it's fit for 2024, for the late 2020s and the 2030s, relentlessly focused on the future. It means having the courage to say we are the party that sticks up for the vulnerable and doesn't discriminate against them. The party that knows that the free market economy model is busted. Trickle down didn't happen. We wouldn't have the inequalities we've got now if the free market worked. We have to build a different economic model. We have to have the courage to say power should be closer to people, invert the political model, bottom up, not top down. And that Green New Deal has to be hardwired into everything that we do, and we stand for peace and we stand for justice. Now, I'm asking you to be part of the next stage of history. We can do this. Like those that have gone before us, every Labour government had a team of people, members, supporters, trade unions, pulling together for change. This is our time. We're responsible for this leg of the journey together. If we pull together, we can shape and influence what comes next. How proud would you be of yourselves and our party if you were part of what happened next? If you were part of taking us from where we are now back into power, where we can change lives for millions of people. That's why I'm standing to be leader of the Labour Party, and I'm asking you to be part of that team. Thank you.
I never expected to be standing here today. I learnt my politics sitting at the top of our stairs, listening to my dad when he came home from work, talking about pay disputes, redundancies, and worse. I learnt my politics working in a pawnbroker's. And my God, that was after many, many years of Conservative government, and you could see what it meant when the government washes its hands of its people. And that's what's happened over the last 10 years. And that's why the election defeat was so hard for us all to take. Now, we shouldn't be under any illusion about the scale of the defeat or the scale of the challenge ahead, but we can't afford to be despondent, and we can't afford to retreat from our transformative agenda that we fought so hard to secure. So I've set out where I stand on putting democratic public ownership of mail, rail, energy and water and more at the heart of an agenda for a green, aspirational, socialist economy. I've set out a plan for a democratic revolution to abolish the House of Lords, devolve real power and end the gentleman's club in Westminster. I'll challenge the government to sign up to our plan for a green industrial revolution to meet our climate targets by 2030. And I've pledged to empower you as members in selections on policy making and with a programme of political education, turning us into a year-round campaigning force in every community. None of this will be easy, and no one will get a free ride from the media. But as the party that was born out of struggles in workplaces, in town halls, in communities across the country, it's our job to get out, to argue with conviction and to inspire people to vote Labour again. This isn't rhetoric, this is vision. That's the only way that we will convince our communities to trust us again. And that's the party I believe in, and that will be our path to power.
Thank you very much. So thank you all for coming. You've been a brilliant audience. And any of you who are staying on, we've got the deputy leadership hustings at 2 o'clock. I think there's somewhere you can get some lunch if you want something to eat. But can we just have another thank you to all our fantastic candidates?